Don't get me wrong, learning composition techniques like the rule of thirds, leading lines, and all the rest is very important and can be very helpful. That's why we've made a video about it that you can see in the cards above, this way I think. But what's just as important is that you need to know why you would want to compose your image using a certain technique or compose it one way instead of another, because that has a huge effect on the feeling and the story of your photo. Hello, I'm Noah from Anything Cameras, the channel that focuses on helping you improve your filming and photography. Last episode of this mini-series, we talked about lighting, and we got a little bit technical, but then we got back into the creative side and why you want to light a photo one way instead of another. And this episode is going to be similar, only because we've already made a video about the technicals of composition. We're going to focus more on the creative side, meaning it will be a bit shorter. In a nutshell, composition is all about lines. And believe it or not, lines have a huge effect on how your photo feels. And you need to find a way to use lines to convey a certain emotion or a certain movement in order to tell your story. And this may seem really difficult, but we're going to break it down, give you some examples, and explain why composition can have such an effect on your photography. The easiest way to begin understanding how lines and composition affect your story and the emotion is to think about the movement that lines can create. If you just have a photo of a car and it's perfectly still, maybe it looks like this photo, then, you know, it looks like a car that's perfectly still, and sure, the lines are nice, it's composed well. But if you have a photo like this, where the lines of the wheels or the rest of the car is slightly blurry, then suddenly you get this sense of motion and movement in the image that now tells the story of this car that's actually doing something and going somewhere, instead of just a static, boring shot. Now, don't get me wrong, car photos like that can be good photos and still have their place. It's just an example I'm using. When you look at a photo, your eyes naturally go to one place in that photo, then they move around until your brain processes the whole thing. That's just one glance. And then you can start analyzing the photo how you like, a little bit more consciously. But that first subconscious glance is the most important part, because that's the first impression. And that subconscious glance is very instinctual. It's up to the photographer to harness that instinct for your eyes to be drawn to one point of the image, then to move around the rest in order to help tell the story and convey the emotion and make it a good photo. Interestingly, you can see differences in how this movement works between different cultures of art. Eastern art often has your eyes move more vertically from the top down to the bottom, while as Western art will typically have your eyes move from left to right in the image. So let's pull up some examples. In this example that I took while camping, immediately your eyes probably jumped to the bicycle. At least that's how it worked for me and Leaf when we first reviewed this photo after many months of it just sitting in my archives. Then your eyes follow that line of the bicycle down in a curve to the dog, who is obviously either vicious or playful and is attacking the bicycle. How do these lines tell a story? Well, your eyes following that curve down to the dog actually mimic the movement of the bicycle, which is coming at an angle towards the dog, which is quite interesting to think that the movement of your eyes is mimicking the movement that was in the photo. Even just that little bit of movement that your eyes follow tells that much of a story of how the bicycle is coming towards the dog and the dog is attacking it. Of course, you get this from other visual cues, like the slight blur in the bicycle, the position of the dog. In example 2 here, we have the same subjects, but it's a very different photo. This time the dog is much calmer, and we have all of these chaotic lines coming from the roots as well as the tree canopy above. For me and Leaf, our eyes immediately jumped to the subjects of the photo, then kind of went down the path and then back up it. Your eyes may have done the same or something similar, where they started at the bottom and then went up the path, following the path to the subjects. In my mind, the roots of these trees in the path and the path tell a story in two different ways. First of all, we have the path itself, which your eyes naturally move along. This helps tell the story of the boy and this dog walking along this path, hiking and having fun together. But you also have the chaotic lines of the routes overlapping each other, zigzagging, curving, some are straight. And this chaos, I think, actually, and this is much more abstract and maybe by a bit more coincidence, but I think this chaos in these lines actually helps tell the story of the boy and his dog and the energy that these two have. And our last example is definitely much more abstract, but it should still be touched on because in this photo, we don't have that clear of a subject. We have the pond, we have the island, and we have the reeds. Now again, my eyes and Leaf's eyes immediately jumped to the island, but quickly went down in kind of a curve to the right to the reeds. Then the lines of the reflection of the reeds led us to the left, kind of still curving down, and then actually back up to the island, so it's almost moving in a circle. What do the lines in this motion say about the photo? Well, it can be interpreted different ways. People are going to see photos differently and interpret them differently, just like people will do the same with poetry. And again, maybe some of it is coincidence here, but I feel like the circular motion could almost signify the cycle that this area, this nature goes throughout the year. But I think it also adds an air of almost mystery. As I said, it's much more abstract, and I think that the black and white aspect of this photo also adds to that abstractness, because it's harder to tell if it's spring, summer, or fall, or it could even be winter, and it's just not cold enough for the pond to be frozen. And I think that, in a nutshell, that mystery is what makes this photo a good photo, because otherwise it's just an island with some grass and the reflections. Anyway, keep watching the series, because next episode we're talking about camera settings. You can see that right here.